So thank you so much for joining me in a conversation, Alex. And for colleagues that don't know you, you're Alex Campbell and you are a portering supervisor in NHS Grampian. So we've had a quick conversation about the importance of being able to showcase and share with colleagues across the health and care system the diverse type of roles that are needed to deliver health and care, and clearly portering services are a massive part of that. In fact, I can't think of a function in health and care relating to patient care where porters are not critical in getting that right. So really looking forward to our conversation this morning, Alex, and I know you've got a cup of coffee with you, as have I, so feel free to drink it as we chat this morning. So Alex, I think it would be great just to hear, as a start off, just a little bit about Alex Campbell, the person, and then a little bit about what the role of a portering supervisor actually is.
Yeah, certainly. So believe it or not, it'll be a year next Tuesday since I joined the NHS. It's not been a huge amount of time. I joined as a porter. My partner already works in the NHS, and the one phrase that always sticks with me is she said, "You don't meet an unhappy porter." And I always remember thinking, there's no way. And to be fair, she's on the whole pretty correct. We do have a great team. In the time that I've been with NHS, I've obviously had the opportunity to step up and act as an acting supervisor, and then to go for a interim role of a seconded supervisor for patient movement in outlying areas, which has obviously come with its a fair amount of challenges. Patient movement being one of the biggest ones, as it's a key service within the NHS. Without porters, we're not getting patients anywhere, whether it's to meet their loved ones after they've finished their treatment, or to take them down to treatment, to take them for scans, to make sure they get their meals. So no, it was a role that I was very happy to take on.
Brilliant, Alex, and gosh, what a time to come into the NHS during the pandemic. Yeah. So you mentioned the different roles that you have as a supervisor there, and I love you never meet an unhappy porter. However, I'm sure you have over the past couple of years had to have conversations with colleagues that are difficult, because we've all struggled, haven't we, in the pandemic, doing different things at home and at work. So to keep those porters happy, what are the things that you and your portering colleagues get frustrated about, and what are the things that actually have worked well since you've joined the NHS and you've observed?
I think the system as a whole, the way that the portering department does work quite well. I think they've handled the pandemic very well. Staff absence has obviously been a big part of what's went wrong over the last 2 years, especially with isolation periods. I mean, even just now, we're still struggling with people that are now contracting the virus and having to then go isolate. Thankfully, we've had a lot of porters that have got the virus and their symptoms have been very mild, and they're able to come back to work after their isolation period. Staff shortages would certainly be the biggest one that's been difficult over the last 2 years. Because as I say, we've got a big team, but it's not. I mean, ARI is a big place. The outlying areas are also big places. So even if you are just a few people down, you're struggling. But the good thing about the team that we've got, they're happy to pick up the slack. But of course, it does put strains on themselves as well. Obviously, we try and avoid that as much as possible. There are your porters that are happy to do your overtimes and extra shifts. But again, we need to make sure that staff welfare is being looked after as well, and we're pretty on the ball with that. With the task management system, which is how the portering department operates most of the jobs that come through, certainly ARI, it's a great system. But we do have a porter control where you've got phone calls coming in, and at times it'll just be relentless, where you've got 3 calls waiting and you're dealing with them for hours and hours on end. With the task management system, we're trying to get people trained up so they can then put their own jobs on. We're we explain that it will be done faster if they were to do that. So if you've got somewhere, a clinic that needs a patient moved as soon as possible, they can then actually go into this system, log a job, and we can just pick it up straight away. I mean, someone that's on the floor can go out, see that job, pick it up, and away you go. So it would certainly take a bit of the heat off of the person that's sitting in control if we get that up and running sooner rather than later. But on the whole, I think we've coped very well, considering we have been quite short on a number of occasions.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've said a few things there, Alex, that other colleagues have mentioned. So workforce is something we talk about all the time in the Northeast, not only in the context of health and care, but obviously that's our business. And you've mentioned about the absences, but the flexibility, I suppose, of your colleagues to do overtime, and I will just take the opportunity to say a huge thank you to you and your colleagues who have done that over the past few years, and I'm sure before that actually as well. But you mentioned in that I think you mentioned a few things that I'd be keen to just understand a bit more from you and from portering colleagues, what that would mean. So you mentioned health and wellbeing, and you spoke about the importance of digital systems. And I know that the access to education and training and support for people that are reluctant or intimidated by using IT all the time it has been a big thing during the pandemic. So can we speak about those two things just in relation to firstly health and wellbeing? What have you been doing for porters, and what's worked and what hasn't worked in looking after their health and wellbeing?
So I mean, we have a team of supervisors at ARI. We are a pretty close team. We do work quite well with the staff. We will kind of come to the party as well if we're needed on a shift, like I'm doing today. But when we are looking at things like rotas, I mean, it's very easy to burn a member of staff out. Even if they are happy, I mean, there's staff we have that will happily put their hand up every time there's overtime. Yeah. But we need to make sure that we take a step back sometimes and say, look, you have a life outside of work as well. You need to make sure that you're looking after yourself. You need to make sure that you're sleeping well, eating well, and not just focused on the job 24/7. It's very easy to do in this job just because it's the first job. I worked in sales previously, and this is a job where I can go home at the end of the day and feel like I've done a good day's work. Feel like I've made a difference, which I think a lot of the porters resonate with. But it does take a toll on you, especially if you're doing things like 12-hour days. We've just made sure that there's an importance and a focus put on making sure that people have their time off, they get their holidays, they make sure to take that time to rest and recuperate. And 100% of the time you'll notice when they come back to work they're ready to go again, recharged. You can tell when somebody's not been off for a while. But like I say, we make sure to look at the rotas regularly and make sure everyone's getting their time off that they need.
Brilliant.
So, yeah, and I think we're pretty on the ball with that.
Balancing people's desire and I suppose need sometimes to do overtime with their health and wellbeing, which obviously, and I couldn't agree more, having just had 2 weeks holiday, the difference to the way you think and the difference the way you are at work is really important. But also, I think I'm pleased to hear is that you and your fellow supervisors actually working alongside colleagues. I think that is so important to understand what it is that they're experiencing every day, to be able to empathise and actually walk in the shoes of others, because it's so important. And like just the same as everybody else, knowing that you go home and you've made a difference is so important, isn't it? No matter what job you do. The other bit that you mentioned was around the importance of your portering system, and that made me think about how do you get access to education and training. I had a conversation yesterday with a group of healthcare support workers who felt that was definitely something they would like to see improved, is being able to get time to do. I would imagine that the mandatory training and the training that you need to do your job safely. How does that work in portering?
You know, I would kind of agree with that, and the fact that, like I say, we are stretched quite thin at the moment, and throughout COVID we have been stretched quite thin. So I believe that having the time to, I think a lot of it does come down to staffing levels. If we had more staff, we can then afford to take in people to allocate more time to them, sitting, getting their mandatory training out of the way, and then the training that they want to do themselves. Because you do have a lot of staff that just want to get trained, want to learn, and want to get on. But so far, like I say, we are quite stretched quite thin. So myself and some of the other supervisors have been making sure that there is a focus when put on training. A lot of our workforce are kind of an older generation, so IT might be a bit harder to grasp. Most of our training is on TURAS as well. We do have our kind of face-to-face courses, which isn't a problem, but a lot of the TURAS training, we can sit there and help the colleagues do it. Like you said, we are quite close with the staff. We do work quite closely with them in the job, and when we're helping them with training, we don't help them with their training when they're actually doing it, but getting them set up on the computer, making sure they understand how things are working, we do quite often.
And it's doing all your training online can be quite intimidating. I'll be bold enough to say it can be quite dull. And it's actually not a style of learning that suits everybody. So I think supporting that children.
Come to me, and don't get me wrong, some of the porters are into their 70s, and I've had porters come to me and say, I don't do online. I'm like, you know what? I get that. If you've never done online and you don't do it, that's fine. There's been kind of ways around it that we can go. I think particularly recently, violence and aggression training, we've been making sure that everyone's been up to date with that. We've managed to find ways around it where people can do their training on paper form. They can go through it there, and then we can make sure that the system's then updated. So there are kind of ways and means around things like this. But when someone says to you, I don't do online, you're like, I can see where you're coming from. But no, on the whole, I would say, 95% or more, we can talk them through how to operate through that, how to get through their learning online, and then just start plugging away the modules. Like you say, for some people it can be quite dull just to sit there and go through, but allocating half an hour, 45 minutes or something out of a day, it's not going to be too much for anyone, I don't think.
Well, I'll be interested to see what your colleagues think when they watch this about their views on it. It's a kind of blended approach to education, isn't it, that we need to get to. I'm going to go back to your comment about your inspiration for coming into it from your partner around you never meet an unhappy porter, and actually just thinking about that throughout my 30 years, I think they're probably right. There always seems to be a sense of humour and a kind of upbeat chat, particularly for portering colleagues who interface with the public all the time. And it's so important, isn't it, to know to have a bit of a laugh at work and to have some fun and banter, I think is key. And definitely, if I was looking for the banter experts, I would seek out some portering colleagues.
We definitely have that in
Yeah. I know that I have made a huge ask of you and your colleagues around the culture survey that we're doing.
Yeah.
And I'd be interested, Alex, to hear what some of the responses have been to my ask for you to participate in that. And I'm happy to hear the good and the bad. But also, from your perspective, having been new to the organisation, which is really good, what are some of the behaviours, because behaviours make up our culture, so what are some of the behaviours that your portering colleagues get frustrated with that they have to experience, and what are some of the things that you think we do well?
But I think there's a lot we do well. I would say that going back to the task management system, I think that regardless what you say to certain departments about how they could help us out, if we explain that we are short on the ground, we're stretched a bit thin, regardless what we say, it's like it falls on deaf ears a lot of time.
Okay.
And the same mistakes will happen over and over again. don't get me wrong, when I say that I've never met an when my partner says she's never met an unhappy porter, that might be the case for her. I mean, we do go through frustrations, and there are, I mean, no one's happy 100% of the time.
Absolutely.
And that's the same for portering. There is frustrations in the job that could be made easier. I think on the whole, we do a lot correct. But like I say, there are situations that do get them frustrated.
Do you think some of that will get picked up in the how other bits of the system can help with the portering system? But I would imagine, like anybody else, how people react to you coming in and out of it, because I can't think of other disciplines that have to interface with more members of the public than your teams. And across such a broad range of services. So the importance of being respected and getting a hand when you need things would make a difference. Do you think some of that will come through from the culture stuff that we're doing?
I think so. I think what we've said to the staff when we're handing these out and getting them to fill them in is be honest. Be 100% honest. If there is things you're frustrated with, this is the time to raise it. I think we will get a bit of that coming back. Like I say, porters are generally they're happy, but there is situations that frustrate them. Patient movement in particular, I don't think the other departments realise what entails a porter's day. The 20,000 plus steps that every one of the porters are doing every day. And even the people that are on specific tasks, they will jump from task to task to task to help out their colleagues. And that could be bloods, it could be stores, it could be patient movement, it could be removal of deceased, it could be anything. There's a lot that involves it, and I don't really think there's a more diverse department out there. Obviously, I've not got the experience of knowing all the departments, but we really are a hugely diverse department. I think a lot of the good and the bad will be reflected on the culture surveys.
Yeah, and I think that's important that we you can't do anything to improve it unless you understand what the problem is, can you? So that's the intention.
Absolutely.
So again, thank you to you and your colleagues. I'm watching the dashboard every day, and your colleagues are definitely inputting into it. So that's good.
Yeah.
Alex, that's been a great conversation, and I suppose just to finish again by thanking you and your colleagues for the relentless efforts that you've put in everything that you do as portering. And I look forward to coming out and having some conversations with portering colleagues. I'm hoping to do that once we've got the survey details and can actually come in and chat through what the experiences are that they have been describing. You've not known the NHS in any other time other than COVID. So if you had any key messages that you wanted to share while you've got me just now, is there anything else you would like to say, or has this conversation been traumatic enough for you and you want to get on with the portering tasks?
One thing I wish I did, I wish I was here years ago. I wish I was here pre-COVID. It's certainly been a job that, I'd love coming to my work. And I think a lot of the other staff are the same mind. I think COVID, from what I gather from the staff that were here pre-COVID, has put a lot of pressures on the staff, and in more than one way. So I think we're very lucky to have the team we do. But no, I just thank you for your time today.
Brilliant, Alex, and I'm going to finish on that inspirational note, and hopefully if there's any budding porters out there that want to come and join us, then they can speak to people like you and know that they'll be part of a great team. So huge thanks, have a great day, and I'll speak to you soon.
You too, nice to meet you, Caroline.